What's going on, guys? Doing this one from the back porch today, and it's a balmy 29 degrees, wind chill's about 20. So I know that's not cold for some of you, because some of you are in like negative digits, but it's what we've got here right now. You'll have to forgive me up front. I am coming off of a couple of days of confirmed type A flu. Yay. Do not recommend. 0 out of 10 stars. It tried to kick my butt. However, as you can see, it woefully failed. And that which does not kill us only makes us stronger. I wanted to get with you guys and go over some cold/wet weather clothing thoughts for the southeastern United States, in particular the deep south. Let me caveat a couple of things real quick too. If you're upset with the venue and the fact that I'm doing this on the back porch, and you're more concerned about that than you are the actual content, just go on down the road. Don't care, don't need to hear it. I'm here to give you information, not to give you a fancy studio and cool shots, okay? Not about the visuals. Again, I'm just coming off of being sick, so my brain's kind of still fried a little bit, but I wanted to get this out. Meant to have done this weeks ago, along with a number of other things, and just time, life, work, etc. got the better of me. That's what happens when you don't do this stuff for a living and you have actual other jobs and responsibilities. So, clothing for the winter and wet in the deep south, southeast. Guys put up videos all the time, all over the interwebs of cold weather loadout, cold weather clothing. And I don't think I've yet seen one that added in the caveat of, this is my cold weather loadout or clothing setup for my area, and this is my area, and this is my terrain, and this is typically the weather that we get. The reason I point that out is, y'all didn't think I forgot this, did you? Oh, no, baby, we got a hot cup right here. And the problem is, what's the magic word, guys, that I preach to you all the time? Context. Hardly anybody gives it. What's right in your area, for example, the Rocky Mountains, northern Colorado, what a buddy of mine wears in South Dakota, or another buddy in Montana, different than what we wear in the deep south. Different environment. Requires different things. The reason that context is important is because if you go and start copying somebody just because they put up this as their cool guy loadout, all of a sudden you may find yourself either A, soaking wet and freezing to death, or B, sweating to death, soaking wet and freezing to death. It's a thing. Context matters. So this is deep south. Think Georgia, northern Florida, central southern Alabama, maybe even northern Alabama, southern South Carolina, maybe reaching up towards North Carolina, depending on time of year and what the weather's doing. Because right about those areas is where you start getting some significant changes in the temperatures and the environment and what you're dealing with. So, the trick and the key down here that I've learned over many years of doing it for us is layering. Now, everybody's going to tell you layering's important just about everywhere, and it is. But it's more important here with the kind of layers and the number of layers. Because where in some places we could start out with our morning temperatures at 28 degrees. I mean, it's 29 right now. We could start out with, perfect example, a couple weeks ago, 26. There's a lot of other places that it may start out at 26 in the morning. The difference being, we could both start out at 26, but in some places it might not get above 32. Whereas we could start out at 26 and get up to 50. Big difference. And depending on what you're doing, your activity, that sort of thing, it can totally change it, what you need to be going on. So I'm going to start out with the bottom stuff and try to work way up. I've got a table full of stuff here. I had to pull stuff out of some of my go bins, out of my ruck, out of the closet. I just kind of piled it all up, so I'm going to try to get through this in a somewhat organized fashion, but you guys didn't pay for organization. Oh, that's right, you didn't pay for any of it, which is why I do it, so you don't have to pay for it. Not knocking anybody that gets paid for it. I hope you get rich at it, okay? Keep it straight, people. So let's start with some of the basics. Your head. A good watch cap is worth its weight in gold. It can be a simple little polyester beanie. It can be a knitted one. It can be synthetic. It can be wool. You do whatever fits your particular situation. One of the benefits to wool is it still works even when it gets wet. You have to bear with me. I told you I'm still getting over this freaking flu bug. So wool still works when it's wet. Polyester stuff's usually a bit cheaper and easier to care for. When it comes to like these little beanies, guys, they're all over the place. Amazon, whoever your favorite place is, they're everywhere. Okay, if you're paying a ton of money for these, you're doing it wrong. Polyester fleece is pretty much polyester fleece. You shouldn't be paying a lot. The reason I like these is because they're cheap. I can buy a bunch of them and not break the bank, and I can stash them all over the place. I can put them in rucks, I can put them in drawers, I can put them in bags. I can put them everywhere because they don't cost much to have a bunch. So beanies are a thing, regular watch caps, whatever. That is a thing. Working our way down, the next thing that I like personally is a good neck gaiter. It can serve multiple purposes. Now this one's just a simple thin polyester one. It's nice and stretchy. It doesn't give a whole lot of insulation value, but it does keep the wind and the air directly off of your skin, especially around your neck and face. Again, depending on the temperature, I might use that, or I might step up to a heavier weight one like this one, which is a USGI surplus one, that's more like, it's not full polypro level of weight material, but it's pretty close. This one holds in a ton of heat, ton of warmth. Keeping that around the neck, I can cover the face, pull it up over my ears, tuck it underneath my watch cap, and then pretty much all I've got exposed is my eyes. These are also worth their weight in gold. Do not spend a ton of money on these. Get cheap ones, get a bunch of them, stash them everywhere. Next is going to be gloves. Depending on the activity is what gloves I use. Sometimes I'll just use my plain old standard flight gloves that I use for everything. They work. They're not going to be super warm, but again, if I don't need super warm gloves, just something to kind of keep the air off my hands, they'll do the job. Next up, some lightweight fleece ones like these. These are actually Outdoor Research. I got them pretty cheap some years ago. They're not super warm, but they do make really good liners. So what you can do, like my normal flight gloves that I wear for all my stuff during warmer weather, I can go up a size or two in those and stick these in them and make these into liners. And that's where they really start coming into their own, is as a liner inside of another glove. So these work pretty good. If it's really cold and if I'm moving, I'm typically going to use something different. But if I'm static, and we're going to touch on that in a minute, these are cold weather flyers gloves. I find these work really well. I like them because they've got the elastic cuffs on them that seal up good around your wrist, and then your jacket sleeve come down over it. These do a really good job. I've had these out in some pretty cold weather. Cold for us, again, mid-20s with a lot of wind, and they do great. So these aren't super expensive. You can usually find these online. Before we go any further, let's touch on one other thing. Going back to that context deal. So for the armed prepared citizen, there's two different contexts outside of normal daily life that we might need to use this stuff. The first one is going to be when we're up doing things, right? So that may be doing the daily chores that we have to do once things have gone bad. Could be doing security patrols, anything like that, where you're moving. The second one's going to be if you're sitting in a static security location, pulling guard duty, where you're not moving. You're basically just sitting still or standing still. There's a differentiation that needs to be made between the two, because one of them you're generating a lot more body heat than you are at the other. So you have to take that into consideration when it comes to your layers and how heavy you go, that sort of thing. For those of you that don't know, typically when it comes to movement, like on a security patrol, something like that, you typically want to start out a little bit cold. You want to be a little bit chilly. Your body's going to generate heat and warm up. If you start out warm, almost guaranteed you're going to overheat at some point. You're going to start having to stop and strip off layers, and that causes all kind of other issues that you don't want to have to be doing if you can avoid it. Not to mention, you start sweating under there and you start taking off layers. Now you're sweaty underneath. Now you get rapidly chilled back down, and it's no bueno. Okay, so keep those two different things in mind when you're thinking about your clothing and your layering system. So moving back on, I typically always wear a synthetic base level t-shirt of some kind. Over the t-shirt, I will wear one of a couple of different things. I'm a big fan of the GI level 1 stuff. This is an older Secre top. This is just a regular long sleeve pullover. This is an actual surplus one. Same thing, same material weight, just in a quarter zip. I use that a lot. Also a big fan of the newer GI level 1 stuff. This is the top and pants. You can get these usually relatively cheap online. They're not super expensive. Those three work really good as base layers. Moving on up from there, I may use these in conjunction with those, or maybe in place of, depending on what I expect the temperature to get up to and what my activity level is. So the next thing up is going to be something heavier, like a grid fleece. Now this one is a quarter zip pullover from True Spec. I use that one a lot, really like it. This is one of my older Secre/Hallis quarter zip grid fleece pullovers. There are newer ones on the market. GI surplus, etc. You can find those all over the place. So the next thing from there, and this is actually my tried and true favorite. I swear by these. I've used them for a long time and I covet it greatly. If you don't like it, that's fine, you do you. But my old school Polypro. I'm a big fan of the old Polypro tops. I find these to be super comfortable, super warm, and I just really like them. I covet this thing in the winter time. It is one of my favorites. And it just dawned on me, there's one particular thing I wanted to show you, and I forgot and left it back inside, so you're going to have to stand by and entertain yourself momentarily so I can go grab it. The next thing that I like to use, and I really like to use it, unfortunately for me, it's somewhat limited on when I can use it, and that is a good wool sweater. This one is actually a Dutch Army wool sweater that I picked up many years ago, and I'll give it to those folks. This thing, it's like a furnace. If you put this on in conjunction with a couple of the base layers, it's got to be pretty dadgum doggone cold, or I got to be sitting real still, because if I do much movement at all with this wool sweater on, I tell you what, it'll cook you. It'll cook you in a heartbeat. In even moderately cold temperatures, if I was sitting in a static security position, one of my level 1 base layers, this, and then a simple thin wind jacket over top, even sitting still, I'd be pretty doggone comfortable in this. Getting a good wool sweater, it can be military surplus, it can even be commercial, heck, it don't matter. Can be very valuable. Again, the wool, even when it gets wet, it does the things. So that's kind of the bulk of what I use. Now I'll use a combination of those layers depending on, again, the weather. Now for the outer top layers, that's where we come in to another realm, and I've got a couple of different things that I use. Typically in conjunction with the others, I like a good simple windproof jacket. My two favorites are the good old British SAS windproof smock. I like that because it's not lined, there's nothing in it, it's just simple material, and it works great at just complementing what I've already got on. And then of course the ubiquitous good old GI M65 field jacket is always an option. Do not sleep on these. They're great. They offer you versatility of being able to have the liner in it or take the liner out. They are still a good option. I still do like and use mine. Moving up to some newer options. This is a newer, kind of like a soft shell jacket. I already did a video on this particular one I showed you in the past. I find myself using this one a lot these days. It has a removable liner as well. So if I just need the windproof part of the jacket, I can take the liner out. If I need the extra insulation, I can throw the liner in. Gives me a lot of versatility, and this one actually packs down fairly small compared to the SAS Mach and the M65. That is a bit of a trade-off. Now, I almost forgot to mention one other very important piece of gear that in probably the last, I don't know, 2 years, year and a half, something like that, I have become very much a big fan of, and that is what you see me wearing right here. This is my my Whoopee hoodie. This is the zip-up version. They make regular pullover versions. This is 1,000 puppies caressing you. It is absolutely glorious. It works great like I have it right now. Works even better as a layer underneath the jacket or something. I'm a big fan of these. If you love your good old Whoopee, you'll like this, because it's literally like just having a good seasoned Whoopee wrapped around you. don't sleep on these either. I use this a lot as well, depending on the weather. So the last thing to look at for the cold weather side is going to be when it's super, super cold, and most likely, probably not when I'm moving, just due to what our temperatures are, probably when I'm sitting still. If I was going to be sitting, pulling guard duty at the subdivision entrance, I don't live in a subdivision, guys, I'm just using that as an example. In the front gate guard shack at the retreat, wherever, if I'm sitting still and it's super cold weather, again, relatively speaking, for our area, what super cold is, and some of y'all are gonna, well, that's -20 here, and okay, yes, yours is super cold for you. I'm talking about super cold for me. It's gonna be my good old tried and true USGI level 7 puffy suit, happy suit, depending on what branch you were in as to what it's called. Now, these are actually the pants. Got them on right now. And this is the jacket. The jacket and pants work as a team really good together. This is kind of like having a sleeping bag that you wear. This combined with a couple of base layers, and you are pretty doggone toasty warm in my area. Again, I can't do a whole lot of movement when I'm wearing the puffy suit because it starts trapping too much heat pretty doggone quick. It's great for stationary, like I said, sitting in a cold guard bunker. That's the ticket. Now, rain gear. Your rain gear needs to work in conjunction with your cold weather gear, but also as a standalone item as well. Now, me and my buddy Noel and good cousin Dick, we have already done a live stream where we've kind of talked about some of this stuff. If you didn't see it, just go back and search the live streams. It's in there somewhere. You'll find it. For wet weather gear, especially in cold weather, well, all year round really, I am personally not a fan of a poncho. It just doesn't work for me, okay? It does not work for me. I prefer a separate rain jacket and pants. Now, one of the things I like to use, and I had to pull this one out of my one of my packs. This is the equivalent of like a level 6 USGI, but any good waterproof type jacket will do. Notice there's nothing to this one, it's just a simple layer. The only purpose of this is to keep me dry. It goes over my other stuff. I can use it in cold weather, I can use it in warmer weather, whatever. I have matching pants that go with it that are waterproof pants. And then the jacket does have a hood in it, but I typically like to wear a waterproof boonie hat, and this one's been again stuffed in the ruck with that one. This is one of the H2O proof boonies from TruSpec. While it's not perfect, it does do a fairly good job of what I want it to do. It does take a little bit of work as far as treating it with a few things, because it does like to leak around the brim in a couple of places if it's in a long, heavy downpour. But for most moderate rain and what I'm doing, I like the waterproof boonie because it will run the water off of my head and neck and still let me hear things. When you put the hood up, you start getting funneled into what's right in front of you, and it gets hard to hear stuff around you. It drives me nuts. I don't like my hearing occluded like that, because if I'm having to use this stuff for what we're talking about in the context of this video, I need to be able to hear things. So, waterproof boonie. My other option, again, it's my tried and true. I just used it 2 weeks ago. The good old USGI Equix, ECWCS. Jacket, pants, suspenders are mandatory. If you ever worn these without suspenders, you'll understand why. This gives me a really good windproof, waterproof layer. I actually have two sets of that, one that fits and one that's oversized. The oversized one is for super cold, when I've got a lot of layers on underneath and I need more room to go over the layers. This does a great job of blocking the wind, the rain, all the stuff, letting the layers underneath do their job to keep me warm. The downside to this is I can't do a lot of movement in it because it does tend to trap heat pretty good, especially with our human environment. Like, I know some of y'all get tired of hearing this same old shtick, but you know, I've told you it's below freezing here right now, but our humidity level is literally like 90%. The air is very, very wet. The air is going to be wet underneath as much as it is on the outside. This traps it either way. I don't want wet air trapped underneath me when I'm moving. It doesn't work, trust me. So this is more of a stationary type thing, or not when I'm doing a lot of movement. If I'm actually having to be out in the bush doing the things, I'll go a different route depending on the temperature. Now, if it's cold enough, I might end up actually using that. Especially if we're getting any kind of frozen precipitation or anything like that happening, that would be something that I would dive into for movement use. What else? I think that's all I was going to cover. I'm sure there's something that I've forgotten, but that's literally the bulk of what my cold and wet weather gear consists of. I can pretty much adapt this to whatever I need for our area and our environment throughout the winter months, for the winters that we get and the activities I intend on doing. Two other things that I've just realized I failed to mention. Going back to the initial part when we were talking about gloves and beanies and neck gaiters and base layers, socks. I am a big fan of Covert Threads and Buffalo Wool Company. That is the two socks that I use all the time for pretty much everything. Most of them are pretty much all wool based of some kind. I'm a big fan of wool socks for year-round use. I have some heavier weight ones for, again, static wintertime use, and some normal weight ones for movement in the wintertime. I think wool socks are really, really important, especially over synthetic socks, simply due to the moisture management. The wool just doesn't care about the moisture in the air inside your boot or anywhere else. It wicks the sweat away from you. It keeps your feet warm even if it gets wet, so on and so forth. So while the beanies and stuff, I can go either way on synthetic versus wool. The socks, I'm pretty much an all wool advocate there. Boy, it feels like the temperature's dropped just while I've been here talking to y'all. What else was I going to throw out there for you? I think that was about it. Hopefully that kind of gives you some kind of an idea for, again, the deep south, winter times when we're talking upper teens through and up. Factor in your area, factor in the weather, factor in what your normal temperatures are, factor in your intended activity level and use, and don't just copy what somebody says on the internet. Don't copy what I'm doing just because I showed you this stuff. I'm trying to give you ideas. If something fits for your area, by all means jump on it. Sorry guys, those of you in the Pacific Northwest, north central U.S., elevated mountainous regions, y'all probably are going to find you want way more stuff than what I've got. Probably a lot of heavier weight stuff, and probably more of it, so on and so forth. Do it for your area. Don't just get it because the cool guy said it was awesome. And don't feel like you got to break the bank with this stuff. It does not have to be super expensive. That's another one of these that sometimes I think some of these guys are just showing y'all videos of their stuff to try to flex and say, hey, look how much expensive, cool name brand stuff that I've got. Here's $2,000 worth of clothing that I just dumped on the table for you. It's not realistic. It's not, guys. Come on. Not what we're talking about, especially not when you really should be having multiples of each item, like multiple base layers, multiple shirts, multiple beanies, more than one jacket, so on and so forth. Don't get caught up in that. Most importantly, whatever you've got, whatever you intend to use, whatever you think is going to work, get out there and use it. Do the things that you think you're going to have to use it doing in the weather that you think you're going to have to use it in, and see if it works. See what happens. Give you a perfect example. A couple weeks ago, had a little get together at our place. My pair of boots that I wore driving to the place, one of my normal pair, but I've got a heavier weight pair that I take for cold weather, and it was getting down into the mid-20s, and all for the sake of a Zyrtec. There's an inside joke there. Don't worry, those that know know. I ended up forgetting them and leaving them sitting by the front door. Hang on, that's the boss. Yep, okay. So I got to the place to do the things, and I didn't have my preferred colder weather boots. Now I had my socks, but not the boots. Now, thankfully my socks did their job. However, I did make the discovery that the pair of boots that I had on, they were okay, but were honestly less than optimal in regards to how well they handled the chilly cold. It was a good mental note made and a lesson learned from the weekend that this one particular pair of boots, while they do okay in cool weather and fine in hot weather, they are most certainly not cold weather boots for me. The only way you find that kind of stuff out is to get out and actually try it. You can run the theory all you want, you can listen to all the other cool guys all you want, but until you have put the stuff on, went out in the exact weather, in the terrain, and done the things, you are not going to know. In fact, you're not even going to know if your particular item works. There could be videos with 20 other guys using the exact same item as you, but yours may have a defect that you don't know about until you actually get out there and use it. You got to find these things out. The only way to find them out, you got to go do the things. I know, broken record, preaching to the choir, but it's got to be repeatedly said. So, I ever mentioned y'all how much I love this mug right here? I know where y'all can get some at, and no, I don't get a thing for telling you that. I just think it's a cool thing to support, and you get a cool mug. Ask me and I'll tell you where you can get it at. If you're smart, you probably figure it out for yourself. It ain't complicated. Alright, wet weather, cold weather, deep south. I think y'all get the picture. It's funny, I'm standing here talking to y'all, and I was talking about the difference between movement and standing still. So right now, because I don't have my super warm gloves on, these are again just the thinner liners, my hands are a little bit cold, but not uncomfortably so. They're plenty functional, and I'd be perfectly fine if I had to stay here another 2 hours. But I can feel they're a little bit cold. They're not as warm as if I had, where'd they go? There they are. If I had my really good super warmy gloves on. But it's funny because the Happy Suit pants have got my legs all nice and toasty. Upper body is just about right. I'm not too hot, not too cold, just kind of perfect there. Head feels good. But I didn't put on my my regular boots and my regular socks. I've got kind of my thinner ones that I wear around the house and around the shop, and I can feel my feet getting a little bit uncomfortable right here on the cold ground. So it's time to go get some more coffee, warm the feet up, and get back to doing some other things. I hope maybe some of you got something out of this. I know some folks have asked for this. I've been meaning to do it long since before anybody even asked for it. Again, just time and all that. If you stuck through listening to me ramble all this way, you're a serious trooper. Much kudos to you. And that may seem, kind of one of those things, but believe it or not, a lot of people won't sit through somebody just talking about this kind of stuff. People have the attention spans of an armadillo these days. I've been told repeatedly that I shouldn't just talk like this and I shouldn't make the videos this long. Obviously, I don't care because I keep making the videos this long and I keep talking like this because I think it's important to try to share stuff with you guys as best I can. This is just my experience and what I do. Yours may be different. You do you. I am by no means an expert, and I am not telling you what you absolutely should do. I'm going to give you some suggestions on what I think, but I'm just a dumb redneck that don't know much of nothing, and in the words of the immortal, I am not a smart man. So, y'all do with it what you will. As always, broken record time again. Get out there and do the things. You got to try it, all of it. We talk about it with the rifles. We talk about it with the gear. We talk about it with everything. You got to do it with the clothes too. You got to get the clothes out there. Final word on the clothes. I keep thinking of things. Some of you are going to argue with me about this. That's fine. Go ahead. Avoid 100% cotton, especially in the deep south. Summertime, wintertime, whatever. Avoid it. Use a synthetic blend of pants and top. I don't care if it's BDU pants and BDU tops or whatever your favorite Go Fast flavor is. Get something that is either a nylon cotton blend or a polyester cotton blend. For your base layers, try to stick synthetic or wool. One of those two. The 100% cotton stuff, guys, from the underwear on up, it's going to be a no-go, I'm telling you. You're not going to like it long term out there in the real world. So, whether I've got more to say or not is irrelevant because the cold is sapping the poor battery in the camera, and I can see the battery light starting to flash. I don't even think it was fully charged when I started this, so that ain't helping none. I'm going to shut up now. You get a reprieve. Take care, guys. Stay safe. Ticky-tock. Clock's ticking. I'll catch you guys later.